Hi guys, I'm back again today with another video. I think the last video we checked out why Russia is safe, and then now we have a contrary to that, which is why foreigners in Russia are not safe. So let's see. Before we do start, don't forget to subscribe, click the bell button, and let's get it.
What is up, everybody? It is your boy Roman, your favorite neighborhood Russian, and in today's video, guys, I want to ask you a question. Would you guys like to move to Russia? Because apparently it seems like a pretty popular thing these days. I've been seeing a bunch of videos about Americans living in Russia going viral recently.
You see I have the Z tattooed on my chin. I got that tattooed the second day of the special operation because I was so happy about it, but...
Okay. And actually I know that I even have a lot of viewers who are foreigners that still live in Russia. And well, in this video, I'm coming with a sort of a warning to all the foreigners in Russia, or to any foreigner that is maybe thinking about moving to Russia for some reason. And the reason is because Russia is actually planning to put all of their foreigners under a strict monitoring regime, under which the foreigners are going to be forced to not criticize and obey essentially everything that the Russian government does, or they might get deported, or perhaps even jailed. And I actually think that this new law perhaps actually explains what happened to Bankrupt a year ago when he got deported and banned from ever entering Russia because of his slight criticism of the Russian government. And before we check out what the Russian media has been saying about all of this, I actually want to see what the West and other media from the world have been saying, and I'm going to do that using Ground News. Ground News is a news aggregator and the ultimate news comparison platform that allows you to not only see news from different sides, but also to keep your own biases in check. To show you how it works, here I am on the Ground website on an article about Russia preparing a loyalty agreement requirements for foreigners. Now, Ground News here shows me that there's a total of 62 news sources that cover this topic. So yes, the West is reporting about this, which is, already good enough. And I can actually go in and individually check out every single news source. Every single source is sorted according to their factuality, ownership, and also political leaning. So for example, if we go on the left here, a lot of the media here actually focuses on the fact that foreigners will be prohibited from any LGBTQ discourse, whereas on the right, the articles and their titles are more so just focusing on the free speech aspect of it. Another great feature that Ground News has is actually bias insights, which essentially gives you what the left, the right, or the center have been saying about a certain issue. I personally enjoy using Ground News because in our current time, Ground News is not only just a great way to stay informed, but also to be able to see right away where your news are coming from and to be able to recognize the agenda behind it. Go over to the link down in the description, ground.news/nfkrz, where you can subscribe for less than $1 a month, or get 40% off of the Vantage plan with unlimited access, which is exactly what I have. So once again, that is ground.news/nfkrz. Huge thanks to Ground News for sponsoring this video, and let's get back into it and see what foreigners are in for in Russia. So here we have an article on the Procurement source saying that the Russian Interior Ministry proposed an idea of making foreigners sign a certain agreement of loyalty upon entering the Russian Federation. This document is going to solidify their agreement to abiding by certain limitations when they're inside Russia, which includes prohibiting the discreditation of the governmental policy of the Russian Federation. So essentially you cannot criticize the special military operation, for example, prohibiting the refusal of traditional family values, and the disinformation regarding the inputs of the Soviet people into the win against fascism.
In English for us.
So yes, essentially family values, no LGBT, no Western degeneracy, as the red pillars like to say, but the way I would really describe this is more so segregation or apartheid perhaps, where certain types of people have more or less rights than other people. There is no way you can challenge that as a foreigner in Russia. You have to be very traditional and straight. And also, you cannot badmouth the Soviet people's input into the victory in World War II, which is, once again, the Soviet Union and the Soviet people actually have done a huge sacrifice in defeating Nazi Germany. However, obviously currently that history is being used in the current propaganda of the special operation with the Z symbolism and everything, and obviously what's being implied is that you cannot criticize any of that either. According to the project of this law, if a foreigner is entering Russia during his entire stay on the territory of Russia, the foreigner is prohibited from, and I quote, obstructing the activities of the organs of the public government of Russia, discrediting in any form the internal or the external governmental policy of Russia. This is, by the way, to all those foreigners who say that Russia is the freest country out there and that you cannot say anything in the West anymore.
Pretty much, if you're not a malicious, degenerate, liberal left in America, you're a Nazi nowadays, or a white supremacist, which isn't the case. This is all of the West.
How about this? You can't even criticize internal policy. You see foreigners in Russia who are thinking that, nobody's gonna touch you because you don't talk about politics and you don't badmouth the special operation, right? Well, you can't even criticize any internal policy. You don't like something that a mayor has done in your city? Bye-bye. Here's your passport, mates. Go back to Birmingham. Yes, amazing. So much for the free Russia that is actually freer than any Western country out there. But also just the idea that when you come into a new country, Russia, you're immediately being given this sort of new piece of paper that you have to sign that explicitly states that here's the 100 laws that we're gonna deport you and jail you for breaking. I don't exactly feel like that leaves a very welcome and great first impression, And also essentially they're saying that you cannot discredit the organs of any governments and also essentially any governmental workers. So yes, you can't criticize anybody in the governments, ever. The document also states that the immigrants will be banned from, and I quote, abusing the rights to freedom of information, including spreading any information that is aimed at the diminishing or the refusal of certain constitutionally important moral or other values, including values of marriage being a union between a man and a woman, the values of family, mothership, fathership, childhood, propaganda of non-traditional sexual relations. So yes, like I said already, pretty much, if you're a foreigner in Russia, don't say gay, don't ever say that word. Because this is a free country of Russia, after all, where all people of all, walks of life get to live and represent themselves. As part of a free society, yes, this is totally happening. And also, foreigners essentially are prohibited from misrepresenting the historical truth of the triumph of the Soviet Union during the defense of the fatherland and its inputs into destruction of fascism. So yeah, if you're a foreigner in Russia and you're a YouTuber or a journalist of some type, if you want to discuss any of these topics, you have to be sort of careful and watch what you say. Welcome to my life and welcome to the life of every single Russian who's had to basically self-censor for their entire lives. Welcome. And this law is essentially already being reviewed and I think it's highly likely that it will pass it. So, first of all, what does this mean? Essentially, this new law pretty much confirms that foreigners in Russia actually don't have any rights. And the Russian government would rather prefer that if you foreigners in Russia would really shut your mouth and really not comment or talk about any of these issues. And the thing is, everything that's been mentioned here, these are already things that are banned for Russian citizens in the first place. Russian citizens are already getting arrested and already going to jail for these exact things that were mentioned, such as discrediting the policy of the Russian government, basically disagreeing with it, or essentially daring to disrespect the historical facts that the government chose as historical facts. All of these things were already banned for Russian citizens, and they were pretty much already in the same way banned for foreigners too in Russia. And what they're doing is that they're giving it legal framing, so that now we can officially deport or perhaps even jail foreigners if they step a little bit out of line. So theoretically, what this means is that not much might change for the foreigners in Russia at first. However, in Russia we have a saying, «Был человек, а статья найдется». Essentially, if you ever cross the wrong roads, or if you ever get unlucky, or if the policeman is just having a bad day that day, you will become a criminal and you will be deported from the country. Because they just want to have the legal framework to be able to jail anybody that they don't like. And I just find it really funny that we've been seeing a lot of these, propaganda videos of foreigners saying how Russia is the freest country out there and it's actually so much better than, Europe or America or whatever, and everybody should move here if you want to actually have a free life and you want to be a free thinker and you don't want to, think about, the SJW woke snowflakes and how everybody's going to be offended by what you say. Russia is the true country of freedom.
I walked around the center of Moscow for 1 hour. I said, wow. I don't see any gays and liberals on the streets. I see men and women couples. I don't see transvestites. I don't see homeless people. This place is heaven on earth. I'm moving here forever.
I do find it really ironic how, all these great people will now be basically living in a Stalinist reality as well. There's already been cases in Russia that happened to Russian citizens where Russian citizens would get arrested for literally a private conversation that somebody overheard and reported them to the police. This is happening. And honestly, I think there's a high possibility that this might start happening to foreigners as well. And I personally believe that this story actually kind of coincides to what happened with Bold and Bankrupt in 2022. If you watch Bold and Bankrupt, you may have seen that right when the war started, he was actually in Ukraine, in Kiev, and he actually left the country on a sort of a refugee train, and he actually said a bunch of supposedly not good things in the description of the video, saying that Putin is a madman and whatnot. And what happened later is that Bold and Bankrupt actually went to Russia to sort of finish his train journey, and what essentially happened is that in one of the Russian cities, on his train journey, he got arrested and detained and questioned. Somehow this video of his questioning ended up online, and this footage is pretty widely known and widely available at this point, I believe, so... And I don't really want to comment on it because I think it's a little bit embarrassing, and obviously in this interrogation, Bold basically just did his best to, talk his way out of that situation, and I totally understand him. He, did the most logical thing. And even though we had a sort of a falling out, I actually don't think there's anything funny about this situation. It's pretty scary, actually. But essentially what happened to Bold and Bankrupt is that somehow his activity was noticed, what he said was noticed, and he got detained and arrested in Russia. And essentially, once again, I don't know anything more than you guys about this entire situation. I'm purely looking at it from the outside, but as far as I understand, what happened is that Bold was possibly facing something serious, but ended up getting away with an administrative case in Russia, and essentially he was fined for discrediting the armed forces of the Russian Federation, which is a new law that was introduced right after the start of the special operation. So yeah, he walked away with that fine, and he essentially got told to leave Russia and was banned from coming back. Again, this happened in 2022. Actually, not that much later after this new law was passed, right? And he was a foreigner, and this happened to him. I mean, granted, Bold and Bankrupt is not your average foreigner. He's a foreigner with a very huge channel, very recognizable and everything, right? However, I'm just saying, these laws start working pretty quickly. And this law that was just passed about foreigners being on a watch list and, having to behave, honestly, I feel like this is kind of what happened in Bold and Bankrupt's case. What happened to him is pretty much the textbook example of what is going to be happening according to this new law. So that's essentially what I'm saying. All of these restrictions, the entire system is already in operation. What they're doing here is that they're giving it a more of a legal framework so that it's easier to control the foreigners of Russia. I understand there's people out there who are foreigners who live in Russia who are fully Z. A lot of the time these people don't hold very nice views towards, minorities and, gay people, etc. And obviously these people will be saying, in the comments of this video that Soy Boy is mad because based Russia has finally, they're talking about family values, etc, etc. Clearly, this is a country that cares about its people. Because there's many foreigners living in Russia for different reasons. However, if you live in Russia for the reason of escaping the woke degeneracy of the West or whatever, that is, destroying your freedom of speech. I mean, I don't want anybody to end up in prison, but I kinda can't help but find it very ironic, and I kinda can't help but laugh. Because it is funny to me when bigoted people leave their own country because, they're not allowed to be Nazis, and then in Russia they have to face another certain type of censorship. I do find it very ironic. However, once again, at the end of the day, I'm not getting any excitement or enjoyment out of people going to prison, so, yeah, what can I say? If you're a foreigner who is thinking about traveling to Russia or who is living in Russia, make sure to consider your options, and just remember that the big brother is always watching. But yeah guys, I guess that is going to be pretty much it for today's video though. I hope you guys did enjoy it. If you guys did, then please make sure to slap that like on it. And once again guys, if you want to support me, link down in the description, become a YouTube member, it's like a...
So, let's see. Let's compare the first video, the safe and the not safe. So, I think that video that we first watched was more like it was before the law. And I feel like they were talking about more of like, harm rather than like the law. So it's kind of like different in that sense, but like I said, it's also an older video, so they didn't incorporate this aspect of it before they did that video. So maybe it was safer back in the days for foreigners, but it seems like it's not going to be as safe in terms of like freedom of speech or freedom full stop, right? Because there's so much censorship and holding back that you have to do, and there's so much that you have to abide so that you can stay there and not like go to jail. So in that case it's kind of like different but similar, and it's safe but not necessarily safe. Like it's a safe country in terms of like maybe crime, but it's not safe because you're being controlled. It's very it's like a very complicated type of differentiation between the two, but at the same time very similar in a sense. Okay, I know I'm very, very confusing, but you guys let me know in the comments if you're from there. Let me know, or if you've been there, or if you know the topic. Let me know some facts and stuff that I didn't quite get or don't know yet in the comments, or if there's a video that you want me to check out, you let me know as well. Thank you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.